Alright guys, how we doing today? I'm your Emperor Crown Fiend, and today we're doing a bit of a special video today. This video has been requested to me by Zether himself, because we made a promise back when we were both about 1,000 subscribers. Like, we said, I told him if he ever hit 10k before the end of the year, I would do a what if specifically dedicated to him, and this is that what if. He chose Gray Fullbuster to do, and so I said alright. So this is how it's going to happen. This will be a movie as requested by him entirely for that. So Zether, I know you're going to be watching this. Hope you enjoy, and congrats on 10k, man. So with that out of the way, let's jump into this. So where we pick up on this what if is right when Deku is, about 2 or 3 years old. Alright, he's just now starting to walk and all that, but his family, it's a bit different. You see, he's not a Midoriya whatsoever. Oh no, he's actually a Fullbuster, because he's actually not Japanese whatsoever. Because where he's actually living at now, Alaska. He's actually living in Alaska. Because, for one, to kind of fit this story, he needs to be in a place that snows all year round, which Alaska is snowy all year round. Like, the snow never melts, pretty much. So, it fits the bill. And on top of that, not a whole lot of people live in Alaska. Alaska is one of the most least populated states that I know about, so it also fits this being kind of a small town type of situation in Alaska. It fits the backstory that Gray had. So yeah. But anyways, and Deku's father is actually going to be Silver Fullbuster. That is Deku's father. However, the mother is still Inko, and her name in this one is Inko Fullbuster. So, there you have it. Now, how these two met is that Silver, he was in Alaska because he was born there. Inko, she wanted to get away from Japan for a while, and so she ended up moving to the United States, but, a lot of those places were a bit too hot for her, so she continued to go up north and further up, and then she heard about Alaska, a place where it snows all the time. She thought that could be a perfect getaway, because she's not wanting to remember about anything similar to Japan or none of that, so she goes to Alaska to get away from it all. And that's where she meets Silver. Long story short, she falls in love with Silver, and Deku was born a few years later. Now, they would still name Deku Gray, so Deku's name would be Gray Fullbuster. However, it is still Deku, so don't get it twisted. But he does have blue hair. So and he does look a lot like Gray, except he has the freckles, and he still has, the green eyes. So, think about it as Deku looking like a mashup between Deku and Gray, and there you have it. But his body build will be more towards Gray's body. So, with that, you have a semblance of the backstory. Now, when Deku first starts to walk, they keep him inside because they don't want the snow to really overwhelm him. But Silver, he's a good family man. He teaches Deku a lot of things, as Inko does as well, because she's a stay-at-home mom. And since Silver's in her life, Inko doesn't really get fat. She stays rather skinny. And Deku, he works out with his father as the years go by. And when Deku's about 6 years old, a huge villain attack happens. And it ends up wiping out most of the residents in Deku's little town, including killing his mother and father. Now, there's a woman that was passing by, and she does end up saving Deku from there and running off with another boy. Now, the boy is not Leon. No. This boy is actually one Shoto Todoroki. As for how Shoto was there, well, let's just say that, in this one, Rei and Endeavor, they did get a divorce because she's not going to be with an abusive person. And Rei took her children and went to live in America over there. She chose Alaska to really cultivate their, ice quirks. But sadly, when the villain attack happened, it didn't just kill Rei, it killed Natsuo, Fuyumi, and Shoto's the only one that was left alive. So Deku and Shoto are actually saved by Or, and she starts to raise them. But since Deku doesn't have a quirk, but she senses that he has something else inside of him. So while she trains Shoto in his ice quirk, because Shoto doesn't want to use his fire part whatsoever. He doesn't want to use it. And since Endeavor basically just not in the picture, he doesn't care about his ex-wife getting killed, or he is a bit sad about some of his children dying, and he doesn't know that Shoto survived. They just say that, all his children died. So Endeavor is a bit heartbroken over that. Shoto thinks that Endeavor just doesn't care enough to come here and get him. So he has a huge hatred towards Endeavor. And Or kind of tempers that a little bit. She actually shows him what it's like to have a mother, and he sees Deku as his brother. And basically, Shoto doesn't have the scar on his eye since Rei never threw the hot water on him. So Shoto's face isn't fucked up either. And Shoto ends up actually dyeing his red half of his hair white. So he just has pure white hair, and he keeps that the entire time. He just keeps it dyed white permanently. And so Deku is actually learning something called old school. It's called ice make magic, which is something Or uses since she is quirkless. Now, how magic works in this universe is actually a lot different than how it would work in the fairy tale where everyone has magic. No, only a select few people can use magic and are magic compatible. You have to be born that way. Silver was one such person, so that's how Deku is because Silver's genetics transferred into Deku being magically able to use it, and it's just perfect for him because you either can use magic or you can use a quirk, or you're born completely unable to have a quirk and completely unable to use magic. That's where All Might falls in. However, we all know All Might has one for all. Therefore, that kind of fixes his situation. Deku was lucky enough to be born magic compatible, thanks to Silver. Now, Deku, he starts learning the basics of magic, and Shoto's captivated by this but knows he can never learn it, so he actually kind of copies the format of ice make magic into his quirk, which, to his surprise, actually makes it stronger. It gives him more fluid control over using his quirk, and the drawbacks are lessened. So Shoto's actually very capable of using this type of techniques with his quirk, as Deku uses it to actually perform his magic. Now, Deku's favorite spells would actually be like Ice Make Excalibur or Ice Make Hammer. Those type of magic attacks would be his favorite to use. However, that's when the villain attack happens again. The villain broke out of jail, and he's on the run again. Now, Deku actually goes to try and fight the villain, thinking that he has enough power to do so. Shoto is knocked out by Or, and Or goes down there and actually uses the ice shell, which is, if you guys don't know, a magic spell that, in terms of using it, you must give up your life. And so she turns her entire body into an ice shell around the villain, one he will never escape from, and it kills him. And it kills Or too. The villain was that powerful. Like, all the American heroes refused to go up there to Alaska, and the Alaskan pro heroes were already defeated. So, yeah, it's not that great of a place. But when Deku wakes up and he remembers seeing what Or did, he cries. His emerald eyes are just full of tears as they pour down his face, where that's when Shoto comes running in and he's like, "What happened? What happened?" Deku explains what happened. Shoto punches Deku in the face, saying that he hates him. He never wants to see him again. He's the reason their master's dead. And Deku feels that in his heart. And so that's when the police arrive and they take both of them to the station. And they find out that this kid's the son of Endeavor. And so Shoto is actually shipped back to Japan to live with Endeavor. Even though he hates it, he's finding that more acceptable than living there with Deku. Because in his mind, Deku's the reason why he doesn't have a mother figure anymore. As for Deku, he stays there in Alaska. He's actually adopted by that police officer. And I'm just going to call the police officer Keith. So Keith actually adopts Deku, and Deku has a pretty okay life. Right? Since Keith's really just a cop, like, Deku's not going to have a whole lot of crazy money coming in, because police officers don't make that much. So yeah. But Deku is raised well. He's allowed to practice his abilities. And since it's Alaska, ice ain't really going to hurt that much. I mean, it's cold enough there anyway. So Deku is going to school, and he doesn't really, make a whole lot of friends. But the ones that he does, he really does cherish them. But Deku's getting ready to graduate high school, and he does want to go to college. And he remembers his mother's Japanese, and Deku does want to be a hero. So, he's thinking. And then he remembers there's a hero college over there in Japan called UA. Okay. So he actually goes over there to UA and applies. And before Deku, gets on the plane to leave for Japan, he's given a warm send-off by his adopted family. And Deku leaves Alaska and flies to Japan. And his family knows that they're never going to see him again. And Deku, he knows that he'll never see them again, because he has no intention on ever returning to Alaska again. And he gets there to Japan after a long flight. He gets off, and then he follows the directions that his GPS has given him to UA. Now, Deku does know Japanese and is very fluent in Japanese, because one, Inko was teaching him a bit whenever she was alive, and Deku kept practicing it. And throughout his time with Or, she did allow Deku to keep practicing his Japanese, and she actually taught him more from books and online courses, all that stuff. So Deku is very fluent in Japanese. So it's not like he's just going to be not able to really speak the language. No, he is very fluent. So he gets there and he signs in, he applies, and they say, alright, well, you have a few months of waiting time. You know, there's 10 months until the entrance exam. And Deku says, oh, okay. So he pretty much thinks that, you know, he can just chill for 10 months. He's got some training time. And he actually feels like, you know, it's actually a lot warmer here than what he would have thought. So goes down there. He sees a beach. For the first time in his life, he's at a beach. And Deku, he's wearing like a white muscle shirt and some long gym shorts and some high tops. That's pretty much what he's wearing down there at the beach. He's just walking across, and he sees how cluttered everything is. He's like, man, this place would be beautiful if it wasn't so polluted. And so that's when there's a man that comes up behind him as he says, hello there. As Deku turns back and says, oh, hello. Can I help you? He says, were you planning to try and clean off this beach? As Deku says, oh, I mean, if no one else will, I don't mind it. I got 10 months to wait until, you know, the entrance exam at UA, so I might as well clean off this beach in the meantime. And so the man says, oh, I can get you permission to use your quirk and actually clean off this beach. As Deku says, oh, cool. I don't have a quirk though. I use magic. And All Might says, oh, you're one of the rare ones. As Deku says, yeah, I'm one of the rare ones. As he says, well, that's even better then. Come on. Oh, by the way, what is your name? As Deku tells him, the name's Gray Fullbuster. It's a pleasure to meet you. As he says, oh, it's a pleasure to meet you too. As basically, the man says, my name is Toshinori Yagi. And Deku says, Toshinori Yagi. Okay, I'll remember that name. And so Deku's out there, and All Might gets him the permission. Which, if you don't know who I was talking about, yeah, it is All Might. But yeah, All Might pretty much gives him the permission. Deku goes over there, he starts cleaning off the beach. And of course, in any true fashion, as soon as Deku starts getting ready to use his power, he strips down. As Toshinori says, whoa, 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 you can't be stripping out here. As Deku's just like, what? Oh, shit. Sorry. Gosh damn it. He slides his boxers back on. He's like, better? Oh, I said, yeah, that's better. Come on, just use it. Deku's like, yeah, sorry about that. It's a habit. He's like, I wonder why. And so everybody starts coming out there. They start feeling that it's cooler at Dagobah Beach. Word gets around, and all of the girls are actually seeing that, you know, it's getting a lot cleaner because of Deku's strength, his magic abilities, and all that. He's actually able to clear it off way faster. And since he's just doing it in his boxers, like, all the girls are just staring at Deku, looking at him like he's ripped, toned. He looks exactly like Gray does on the thumbnail. So, yeah. Deku's pretty much just attracting all the women out there to watch him clean up a beach. All Might looks at the kid and he says, wow, dude's a natural chick magnet. And everyone just kind of looks at him and is just like, wow. And Deku's just staring like, so what? And so he starts to get the last bit cleaned off, and right then and there, as soon as he goes to lift that last one, someone else's ice comes and knocks it into the truck. As Deku looks and he sees a man with pure white hair and two different colored eyes. He says, Shoto? as he says, Gray, what are you doing in Japan? I thought you were in Alaska. And all the girls say, wait a minute, Shoto knows him? As Shoto kind of just walks over there to Deku as he says, I still haven't forgotten what you did. All the hell I've had to go through. It's all your fault. And Deku says, what, do you think my life was any easier? Oh, I'm sorry you got to live with your rich dad. Alright? I was stuck living a poor life. You don't hear me complaining about it. As Shoto just glares at Deku, and Deku stares right back at him. And Shoto says, we'll settle this in a fight, right here, right now. And Deku says, oh, you're asking for it then. Bring it on. And basically, that's when, Toshinori actually transforms into All Might, slams down there on the beach saying, no, hold up here. No need to be fighting. As basically Shoto says, All Might, what are you doing here? As Deku, he looks at All Might, he's just like, uh-huh. Well, neat. As Toshinori looks at Deku, he's like, oh, fuck, he figured it out. And basically, Deku just thinks you have to be an idiot not to be able to figure that out. And so, All Might de-escalates the situation and says that if Shoto wants, he's more than welcome to train with them, and he'll arrange a place for them to go at it. And so, Shoto agrees. He'll train with them for the next amount of months. And since it only took Deku about 2 months to clean off Dagobah Beach, he has about 8 more months left, and now he has Shoto to have to worry about for the next 8 months. So, basically, Deku and Shoto practice their ice powers, as Shoto's not even going to use his fire. In fact, he limits himself so much just because he's not using it, but he doesn't want to. So, he actually shows Deku how good he is with his ice, as Deku shows Shoto how good he is with his ice make magic. And so, the two of them seem pretty even, and All Might says this is going to be a good showdown when it happens. And so, basically, in about a month, they're having their fight. So for the whole month, they just train separately. And All Might notices that Deku's rapidly improving, a lot faster than the rate Shoto is improving. And he wonders as to why that is. So All Might actually makes a phone call to Endeavor, as he asks Endeavor, why is it that his son's progress is so slow compared to other people? As Endeavor explains that the reason why is because he limits himself to only using his ice power, when in reality he has fire as well. And that's when it clicks with All Might. And he says, I understand that. I'm going to help you out a little bit, Endeavor. I'm going to see if I can't get him to use his fire. So, Endeavor actually agrees to this, and he says, do you want my help? All Might says, that'd be actually really helpful, because I have another student. I'll help yours, you help mine. Endeavor agrees. And so, the next day, Deku gets there and he sees All Might and a man with a flaming beard. And he's like, what in the fuck? Shoto gets there about 5 minutes later and he sees his father there and he says, why the fuck are you here, Dad? Deku looks at Endeavor, he says, Dad? And he looks at Shoto, he looks back at Endeavor. Back at Shoto. Back at Endeavor. And he says, oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense as to why you had the red hair before you started dyeing it. As Shoto glares at Deku, Deku puts his hands up and says, "Hey, don't hate on me, man. You did this to yourself." And so, basically, Endeavor says that All Might will be training Shoto. And Deku's like, "The fuck? All Might? What the hell, man?" And basically, All Might says, "Look, you ain't gonna learn to increase your ice power against someone who uses fist. You need someone who can use fire to get your ice stronger. He's the strongest fire hero in the world. So, he's training you." What about our fight? And All Might says, "Not gonna happen till Shoto stops limiting himself." As Deku's like, "What do you mean limiting yourself?" And basically, Shoto tells them not to say a damn thing. And so, they agree to Shoto's wishes. But they say that Shoto has to be able to go at 100% for them to allow this fight. And so, Shoto agrees that he'll get to 100%. But he won't be doing it because of his father. He wants to do it so he can show just how outclassed Deku really is. So with that, Deku starts his training with Endeavor. And basically, how this is going to go is Deku and Endeavor are going to spar every single day, even Sundays, like 7 days a week, non-stop sparring for 3 hours a day. And at first, Deku's getting his ass whooped every day for 3 hours a day. And it goes on for about a month. And on that second month, that's when Deku's ice starts being able to take Endeavor's fire. And he actually starts fighting back, and Endeavor and him are having very close matches. Severely close. And after that last month leading up to the fight, which at this point in time, it's been 6 months. So they only have 4 months left of training. And basically, Endeavor says he's ready to go. He talks to All Might, and All Might says that Shoto's ready to go. He even showcases a few burns he got from fighting Shoto. And so, the match is set. The first day of the 7th month is their fight. And so, Deku and Shoto are giving a rest week. A week to just rest and let their bodies heal. And so, pretty much they start resting. And Deku's rest actually leads him to meeting somebody. He's walking over into a restaurant and he accidentally bumps into somebody. It's a girl. He looks down and she says, "Oh, hi, my name is Yui. What's yours?" He says, "Oh, my name's Gray. Gray Fullbuster. Nice to meet you." As he helps her up and she says, "Blue hair, green eyes. Wow, you must be popular." Deku says, "Not really." So, pretty much, Deku and her end up talking. And Deku convinces her to stay and, he buys her a coffee. The two are just sitting there. Deku's in a long-sleeved shirt. He's in some baggy pants. He's got some boots on. And, she's actually just looking at him. And she's actually very interested in him. And she lets him know that. Deku says that feeling's mutual. So, they exchange phone numbers. And with that, Yui takes her leave after having her cup of coffee, and she tells Deku, "Stay in touch." Deku says sure. So, she leaves, as Deku stays there for a good majority of the day. He likes watching the snow fall, and he does drink his coffee. So, he's pretty good. Now, after that, week is done, and it's time for the fight. So, Shoto's there, Deku's there. Deku throws off his shirt. He's gotten pretty good about his stripping habits now. He only throws off his shirt when he's in a fight. So, pretty much, Deku's ready. Shoto's ready because he throws his shirt off. Which, yeah, that's a habit of Shoto's as well. Since Shoto is like the Leon in the story. So, basically, Shoto just starts it off with an ice attack. And Deku says, "Ice make hammer!" And it destroys Shoto's ice. And Shoto's telling him that with his quirk, his one-handed ice techniques are a lot stronger than what takes him using two hands to do. And Deku says, "You may have a quirk, but you seem to have forgotten. Remember, the technique that you learned from Or, two hands, is what makes ice powers that much stronger." As he puts his hands together and creates Ice Make Excalibur and just shreds through Shoto's ice. And that's when Shoto gets pissed. His fire side starts flaming up. As he shoots fire at Deku, Deku's Ice Make Excalibur cuts straight through the flames, extinguishing them, and then he creates an Ice Make Hammer and smacks Shoto in the stomach with it. And then he says, "Ice Make Shovel!" and smacks Shoto across the face with an ice shovel, shattering it across him. As Shoto hits the sand and looks up at Deku as Deku holds his hand out saying, "It's my win." And Shoto says, "Not yet, it's not." As Shoto uses both hands and does a ice attack that actually is shaped like a dragon that hits Deku and spirals up into the air and throws him to the ground. Deku, seeing that the fight's not completely out of Shoto, Shoto smiles at him and says, "Just like in the old days, huh, brother?" And Deku says, "Yeah, just like the old days with Or." And through their fight, the two of them actually exchange a lot of emotions between the two of them. And basically, Shoto understands where Deku was coming from when he attacked that villain. And he understands what actually needed to be done. So he's not mad anymore, but he is sad, and the fight continues until both are completely exhausted. Shoto used his ice techniques that limited his drawback. He used his fire side to keep his body warm enough to where he could keep going, and they both just ran out of energy and collapsed. And so the fight was counted as a draw. The two boys smiled and they helped each other up. And Endeavor is actually a very proud father. And yes, he did make his mistakes, and he knows that, and he's actually going through making amends with Shoto a lot earlier after seeing Deku and Shoto's fights. As, after all, he has fought Deku himself, and he knows that Deku knows Shoto better than Endeavor does. And this fight made that very apparent. So Endeavor wants to get to know his son, what he went through, everything. And that's when Endeavor makes an offer to Deku. He says, "I'll take you in. You can come and live with us." As Deku looks and says, "What?" Endeavor says, "You can come live with me and Shoto. You two are brothers, aren't you? It's only right that I take in another son." As Deku actually tears up a little bit, and Shoto grabs him by the neck and says, "Sure, he'll come." And All Might actually smiles. And he notices that he didn't have time to really find a successor. but he tells Endeavor the two are in his hands. He has other things he has to attend to. And so, basically Endeavor agrees. So, with that, Deku gets a phone call after he's done moving in. It's from Yui. And Deku answers the phone call. He goes out, he meets Yui, and the two of them have a nice chat. They have a very nice time together. They eat, they go for a walk. She actually takes Deku to a carnival, where her and Deku just have some type of stupid fun, and ultimately they go their separate ways after, Yui gives him a kiss on the cheek and Deku walks off. Now, Shoto, he's very curious and he can smell the perfume on Deku. Endeavor's not home yet, and he tells Deku you might want to hit the shower before the old man gets back and starts interrogating him on who his lady friend is. As Deku says, yeah. So Deku hits the shower, and he actually ends up, enjoying it quite a good bit. Because after a long day, he's relaxing with a nice shower. He had a really great day, now that he thinks about it. And him and Shoto sit down. Shoto actually made soba, and the two are enjoying soba together. Endeavor comes home as he joins them eating. He asks how their days went. Shoto actually just starts laughing his ass off, and Endeavor's like, the fuck? And Deku's just like, don't you fucking dare. And Shoto just blares out that Gray came home with a girl's perfume all over him and lipstick on his cheek, and Endeavor just looks at him, places his hand on his shoulder, nods, and says, I understand. Just remember, the art of the Saiyan armor. Here is the pack of Saiyan armor, my boy. As Shoto just dies out laughing, Deku's just turning red in the face. He's like, it's not like that. Endeavor says, oh, trust me, I made these excuses too all the time. No, just remember, Saiyan armor. And Deku is just like, why? Why is this happening? And so he's just like, whatever. And Shoto's just like, man, I need to find me a girl that I can have the Saiyan armor treatment with. And Deku just doesn't look. UA's entrance exam's tomorrow. And he's like, yeah, I got the recommendation course, man. I'm pretty much golden. And Endeavor says that no, he actually retracted that. He's gonna have to earn his way in. And Shoto's just like, fuck. Now Deku starts laughing. And so Shoto and Deku are pretty good. And now that Shoto's a lot more happier in this one, and with Deku actually, being technically his brother kind of thing. So yeah, they're actually having a really good time. And they sleep, next day happens, it's time for the entrance exam. Deku goes, and Shoto goes. Shoulder to shoulder, they get there at the same time. And since Shoto didn't take the recommendation course this time, that means Inasa actually does accept the offer. And there's actually a different split. But I'll get into that when things actually happen. So, with the entrance exam here, Deku and Shoto are there, and Deku hears some loudmouth kid in the background. He's looking around. He says, wait, who the fuck is that guy? And Shoto says, I don't know. We might as well just not get involved. Deku says, yeah, anyone that loud has to be a loser. And the two just walk off. And basically, Shoto, he still has his hair dyed white just because he likes how that looks. He doesn't really like having two-toned hair whatsoever, so he just keeps it white. He actually spikes it up, though. And Deku's hair, it wears exactly like Gray does. So, yeah, just so you know. Now, Deku is actually going through a bit of a inner monologue with him. He's like, man, I don't know shit about Japanese tests. I'm about to take this. Fuck, I hope I pass. And he sits down. The test is given to him. He's like, this is the test? This is fucking easy. Okay. So he just takes the test. And he turns it in. And they pretty much just tell him to go outside and wait. Deku does that. Shoto finishes up. He goes out there and waits with Deku. As that's when Shoto says, it looked like you were sweating going in, but once you saw the test, let me guess, you thought, this is fucking easy. And Deku's like, you know me too well. And that's when Ida comes out. Ida actually finishes up a lot earlier. And he actually goes out there to introduce himself to the two. As Shoto tells him, my name is Shoto Todoroki. Deku says, my name is Gray Fullbuster. As Ida says, my name is Tenya Ida. And they pretty much just all shake hands. As Ida says, so, are you two, like, type of family or some shit? You guys seem like a lot closer than friends. Or are you guys in a relationship? Like, what's your thing? As Shoto says, he's my brother. And Deku says, he's a brother, nothing else. As Ida says, oh, okay, cool. And Shoto says, why? You want me or something? And Ida says, oh, no, none of that. And Shoto laughs, says, relax, man, I don't swing that way. But I will joke about it. And basically, Deku just laughs, and he's just like, man, look on your face was priceless. Ida's actually not that much of a stickler for the rules, and seeing how these two are just really joking, Ida actually joins in on it. So the three of them are actually bonding out there while they wait for everybody else. Everyone else gets out there, and that's when a woman comes up and says, oh, you're here. I didn't think we'd have the same testing grounds. As Deku looks and says, Yui, hey. As she says, hey. As she walks over there and gives him a kiss on the cheek. And Shoto says, so that's her. Okay. Not bad taste. Not bad taste at all, bro. As Deku just looks at him and says, please don't. And Shoto just says, too bad, I already snagged a pic when she kissed you. Oh man, I'm sending it to Dad. As he sends it to Endeavor. Endeavor replies, the boy has excellent taste. As Deku just says, gosh, damn. Endeavor sends Deku a text. He checks the phone. Yui's looking over his shoulder. As Endeavor says in all caps, the Saiyan armor! And Deku's whole face just turns red. He's like, God, no, please, no. As basically President Mike says, there's no countdowns in a real battle. Get set, and the gates open. Deku's just like, yeah, this is pretty much done. Ice make shovel. As he goes over there and starts just beating the fuck out of robots with an ice make shovel. And for those OG members who've been around the channel, you know about the shovel. You know, it's coming back. As pretty much he just beats all of them with a shovel. Shoto, he's doing the same thing. He's made a pure ice shovel. He's beating the fuck out of them. As Shoto says, and every day I'm shoveling. And Deku just looks at him and says, no, just no. As Deku just says, oh, fuck this. Ice make cannon. As he shoots out fucking ice out of a cannon and starts destroying robots that way. And Shoto says, you fucked it up. But alright. He just uses ice and just fucking freezes robots. And they actually fuck over Bakugo pretty hard this way. Because Deku sees a cluster of robots right there. He makes the cannon shoot the cluster of robots, which takes all the points that Bakugo would have got away from Bakugo. And Bakugo just looks at Deku And Deku just smiles and waves. He says, "Oh, thanks for helping." As Baku just says, "Those were mine, you fucking bastard!" As Deku says, "Sorry, first one to strike him gets him." As he runs off. Baku's pretty pissed off at this point. But that's when Nezu just unleashes the zero pointer. And since Uraku's not here, it's Yui this time. Yui's not dumb enough to get caught. I'm just gonna be serious. Yui's not dumb enough to get caught slacking like that. So, yeah. Yui gets away from it, and basically, Deku pretty much just blitzes back from there. And everyone gets away. The zero pointer isn't really destroyed because Deku and Shoto, they ain't trying to fuck around. And for one, Yui's fine, so it's not like Deku's got to do anything heroic anyway. So they basically just run off. And that's how that ends up. So the classes this time are going to be a lot different. Because as they wait, they both get, the letter saying that they're in, and they end up going into the school. Now, this is where I say the classes are going to be a lot different. Now, Class 1A in this one is going to end up being a large majority of the same people, except 3 people are getting swapped out with Class 1B people. So, instead of, Kirishima, it's Tetsu. Instead of Bakugo, we have Inasa. And instead of Mineta, we actually have Yui. So, those are the people that get swapped out. Now, who gets kicked out and to make room for, Inasa to come on in? Well, that's Magma. The manga dude. So yeah, Manga, he gets kicked out. Not Magma, but Manga. Manga gets kicked to the curb because how the fuck did he even get in? That's just my question. But hey. Anyway, so yeah, just switch Bakugo, Kirishima, and Mineta into Class 1B. Tetsu, Inasa, and Yui are in Class 1A. That's the difference between the classes. And, of course, Aizawa says his normal things, and, they actually start walking out. So, everyone's in the changing room. Shoto's still joking around with Deku. Now, Tetsu actually doesn't make any remarks this time, and since Mineta's not there, there's nobody to peep on them. But Inasa's actually wanting to get to know everybody, so he's going around introducing himself. He gets to Shoto, he says, "Oh, aren't you the son of Endeavor?" And Shoto's like, "Yeah, nice to meet you, man," as he extends his hand. Inasa takes it, and Shoto shakes his hand normally. And Inasa realizes his father's not that much of an asshole. And that the son of Endeavor's not an asshole at all. Maybe he caught Endeavor on a bad day. So, that's what he's trying to justify to himself. Now, he meets Deku, and Deku shakes his hand and says, "Hey, the name's Gray Fullbuster." As basically Inasa just says, "Nice to meet you too." Now, Inasa's met everybody, and everyone's just pretty much enjoying Inasa's company. Now, they get out there to the field, and Aizawa says, "Alright, everybody, we're doing a quirk assessment. You know the drill. If you don't show any promise, you're expelled." And so, they're pretty much just like, "Gotcha." So with that, everybody's ready. They're set. And they're just waiting. The first person up is Deku. Now, Deku gets there, and he says, "So, we'll just do this. Ice make cannon." As he makes a cannon out of ice. he puts the ball in, and he says, I didn't have to throw it myself, right? I could use my quirk to do it. And he says, yes, that's the point. Deku says, alright, fire. And he shoots the ball out of a fucking cannon. And with this, it actually gets really fucking far since it's a fucking cannon. And he made it a large ass cannon. So he actually gets the ball all the way into the fucking Hosu City. Yeah, that's how far he shoots that bitch. And with that, Aizawa just says, yeah, you got a lot of promise, kid. So Deku's pretty much just like, thanks. Next up is Shoto. Shoto does the same exact fucking thing. And basically, Aizawa's just like, the fuck? 2 people with ice in the same damn class. Fuck. Okay. Let's see how far you get yours. Shoto gets it the same distance. And he's just like, fuck. 2 people tied. Gosh damn it. So everybody else goes. Yui, she doesn't get hers that far, but she gets enough to pass. Tetsu, he gets Kirishima's cannon record. Now Inasa. Inasa's actually wanting to kind of keep up pace with those guys. But he can't. He tries, but he only gets it within the inner city limits, like the city right outside of UA. He only gets it into there. So, yeah. Not all that far compared to Deku and Shoto. So, with that, they're actually pretty much just set. Now, out of the race and stuff, Inasa does win the race. Grip, strength, Tetsu destroys that. So it's basically pretty balanced overall. So with that, the day comes to an end. They're sent home. Now Deku doesn't go straight home. In fact, instead he actually goes out with Shoto to celebrate. Yui doesn't join them this time. And that's where Deku meets another woman. And she's actually very interested in Deku right off the bat. And she says, hey, you're pretty cute. And Deku says, oh, thanks. Who are you? She says, oh, how rude. My name is Cammy. It's nice to meet you. As Deku says, okay. So, Cammy, thanks for the compliment. And, yeah, anything else? And she says, well, since you're asking, how about you give me your phone number? And she gets up pretty close to Deku, and Cammy's just wearing a crop top and some shorts. Deku is just like staring right at her fucking tits, and he says, yeah, sure, here's my phone number. Cammy says, great, thank you, as she gives Deku a kiss on the cheek and walks off. And immediately after that, she sends Deku a suggestive picture, and we'll just leave it at that. And Shoto's just like, oh shit, you got 2 bitches, huh? And Deku's just like, apparently. He's like, I wonder what Cammy's gonna think about Yui. And Deku's like, she don't have to know about Yui. Besides, ain't nothing going on between me and Yui. And Deku is trying to just change the subject. Shoto's like, no. You're saying there's nothing going on between you and Yui. My boy, that's a cap. That's the biggest cap of the fucking century. You already know how Yui feels about you. And you out here chasing another girl? My boy. And Deku's like, man, shut the fuck up. Maybe I'm just trying to get her to play her off onto you. Shoto says, oh, no. No, we ain't doing that. Fuck that. My boy, I ain't getting no sloppy seconds. The fuck you think this is? As, you know, Deku, he's just like, man, just change the subject already, man. He's like, yeah, first, show me that picture she sent you. Deku slides his phone over. Shoto sees it and he's just like, oh man, Saiyan armor gonna have to come out sooner than expected, ain't it? Deku's like, shut the fuck up. And so, Shoto, she's like, yeah, sure. Man, I don't know what it is, but every girl out here, it seems their favorite color is gray. And Deku says, really? Shoto says, had to make the pun. And Deku just, man, fuck off. So after that, they finish off enjoying their shit and they head on home. Endeavor greets them. He says, so, I hear that you getting suggested pictures now, my boy. And Deku's just like, fucking Shoto. Shoto smiles and says, I'm going to bed. Endeavor sits Deku down. He's like, my boy, I'm proud of you. You out here pulling bitches like this. You're making me proud, man. You're making me proud. And Deku just says, thanks. And Endeavor just says, I mean it, man. You're doing good. Your grades are awesome. You're fitting in here just fine. Why don't you stay here? Live here permanently. And Deku says, that was kind of the plan. And Endeavor says, great. So, how about we change your name from Fullbuster to a Todoroki? And Deku thinks about it. And he says, alright. Okay. I'm down for it. And so, Deku's full new name, after the weeks that it takes to process it, is Gray Fullbuster Todoroki. Since he didn't have a middle name, he took his previous last name and moved it into where his middle name should be. So Todoroki is his legal last name now. As for the other family that was there with him, it's fine with him. It's wherever he's happiest at. Although it does hurt a lot to hear that he chose another family. They understand. But it still hurts. And so, that all happens. And next up, it's time for the Heroes vs. Villain event. Now, with this one, All Might, he pretty much already knows these two kids. And he's pretty much just like, alright, I gotta give these two a challenge. What's something they haven't fought before? So, All Might actually makes 2 custom matches, and the rest are drawn by lottery. So, the 2 custom matches are 1, Deku along with Yui versus Inasa and Ochako. So, basically, Deku's pretty much just like, alright, bet. And, Shoto actually let it slip what Deku said to Yui. And Yui's like, can I get a new teammate? And Deku's like, the fuck? And All Might says, sorry, but no. And Yui says, okay, fine. And Deku's like, yo, why the fuck you want another teammate? She says, oh, I don't know. Maybe you should ask that other bitch if she'll be your teammate. And Deku's just like, fucking Shoto. And so he's just like, hey, it ain't like that. He's like, oh, really? It ain't like that, huh? So there ain't shit going on between you and me, apparently. So what's it matter to you, Mr. Playboy? Deku's like, come on. Let me talk to you about this. Like, come on, please? She's like, yeah, we'll talk about this after this. And Deku's like, fucking Shoto. Shoto's over there looking, he's like, I may have fucked up. So, Shoto is teamed up with Momo against Tetsu and Jiro. And Tetsu actually starts flirting around with Jiro. And Jiro's actually kind of just, flirting right back. Now, Momo, she's actually, just like Canon, kind of shy, timid. But Shoto, he's actually a lot more energetic and outgoing, so he is actually able to, kind of get her in the mind space, get her hyped up and ready to go for it. Now, as for Deku's fight, well, we'll go ahead and get this one out of the way. So, Deku and Yui are the villains. The hero is Inasa and Ochako. So, Deku already knows Inasa has wind. That isn't going to be good if they get up here along with Gravity Bitch. So, yeah. He ain't about to let that happen. So, he asks Yui if she could just shrink down the Doomsday device. She says, sure, whatever. So, she shrinks it down. And that's when the floor just explodes. And Inasa comes flying up there. And he's like, where's the device? And pretty much, they just say, don't know. As Inasa just says, this is so fucking weird. And then Inasa remembers her quirk. He's like, oh, okay, where'd you hide it? Deku's like, fuck. Alright, Ice Make? He's like, nope, none of that, sorry. As Deku gets hit with a blast of wind, knocking him against the wall, and he's like, fucker. And Deku's hero outfit is basically what Gray wore in the Grand Magic Games. That type shit. For now. It'll change later on in the story, but for now, that is his whole hero outfit. As that's where Deku is on the level of. So, pretty much, Deku just stares at Inasa, and he just says, fine then, Ice Make Excalibur. As he makes Excalibur, and then he rushes over there towards Inasa, dodging his wind blast, and he actually throws his Ice Make Excalibur right at Inasa, and Inasa barely dodges it before it hits the wall and actually sticks into the wall. As Inasa's just like, the fuck? And that's when Deku's in close enough, as he makes an Ice Make Shovel and slams it into Inasa's head, knocking Inasa out as Deku puts the shovel onto the ground, and he says, so, where do you want me to dig your grave at? And Uraka is actually getting the better of Yui. And that's just because Uraka took the debris and is actually shooting it at Yui. But Yui's trying to get in close. However, Deku ends up, freezing Uraka right in place. And that causes them to win the match. With that, All Might has a lot of issues with how Deku and Yui handled the situation, especially since there was no semblance of teamwork going on in there, and it seems like they were too busy arguing with each other than actually focusing on the task. So the two are heavily reprimanded for that, as Yui says, sorry, sir. As Deku says, sorry, All Might. And now we get on to Shoto's match. Which, Shoto, he's actually not just wanting to flash freeze everything in one go, like in canon. No, he's actually wanting to show off his entire bag. Like, he wants to show off his fire and ice. Because lately all he's been showing off is his ice. He wants people to know he can bring the heat too. So, Shoto's actually, talking with Momo. They're very focused on their task. as Momo kind of makes several things to create other vibrations that would mimic their walking, just so Jiro can't listen to it. Now, Tetsu would start running down there to kind of cut them off, since Tetsu and Jiro are the villains. And with that, it actually leads them to coming blow to blow with Tetsu. Now, Tetsu is actually a very tough fight for Shoto. But remember, Shoto is way beyond what he was in canon. And Tetsu is still where he should be at in canon. So, Shoto is able to flash freeze Tetsu and move on. Now, with Momo being into this, she actually wants to take down Jiro herself. So, Shoto allows this while he heads towards the Doomsday device. Jiro does shoot a sound blast at Todoroki, knocking him not off his feet, knocks him back just a little bit. As he's like, okay, sound blast. Gotcha. Now, as for that, basically this leads to Momo actually creating something else. She creates a little sonic grenade and throws it at Jiro's feet as the sound goes off and blasts Jiro straight in the face, and Jiro's down for the count because of how loud the sound is. As Jiro does have some bleeding from her ears, Momo thinks that she really went too far. Shoto touches the Doomsday device. They win complete total domination. And everybody else goes however you want them to. Not going to cover the non-important people. So, basically, that wraps everything up. Now, how we move forward through here is the class rep is chosen to be actually Shoto. Shoto is the class rep, and Momo is his assistant. So, that's how that's going on. Now, time passes, and it's time for the USJ to happen. With the USJ, there's a lot of differences that will happen in this one. They get there, and 13 gets her whole speech. Now, Deku, all throughout leading up to the USJ, he's been going out seeing Cammy and mending his relationship with Yui. So he still has both girls in his pocket. Now, that's actually going to come back to bite him later on. So, when they get to the USJ, they actually manage to get in there, and when the villains show up, that's when there's an extra person. Instead of it just being Nomu, Kurogiri, and Shigaraki, there's another person there. One silver Fullbuster. And he has strong ice magic. So, he gets over there, and Deku sees Silver. He starts tearing up. And Aizawa and everybody else, they don't know why. Like, he's a Todoroki, isn't he? And Shoto figures it out. But he doesn't say anything. Instead, he is right there next to Deku. And when Kurogiri separates everybody, and I mean everyone gets separated this time around, Deku, he's not at the shipwreck zone, he's in the fire zone. Because Silver's told them that Deku does have ice powers. So, they put him in the fire zone, not knowing how strong his ice is. But Silver looks at Shigaraki and he says, "If my son dies, I'll kill you myself." As pretty much Shigaraki says, "All that talk, coming from a puppet. Get your ass moving. Fulfill your end of the bargain." And so, Silver does. He gets there and he starts fighting as hard as he can, and Aizawa is fighting against Silver. However, Silver ends up killing Aizawa, and Aizawa falls down to the ground dead. Everyone is shocked. 13's down, Aizawa's dead. They're just students. What can they do? And about that time, ice just goes everywhere. But it's not from Silver. It's from Shoto and Deku. As Deku's pissed, Shoto's pissed, and it starts snowing in there. Everyone is looking. Even the villains are just like, oh fuck, these two were strong. And so, with that, they all start trying to charge at those two, and they get frozen. Deku's freezing them, Shoto's freezing them. Deku's burying them with the fucking ice shovel, using ice make hammer, cannon, all at once. Like, he's going on a full-fledged assault. Shoto's letting it rip with his eyes. He's using his fire to burn some people. Like, their teachers are dead. There's no reason to hold back. And since Ida didn't get to go get help, this is literally them having to fight for their lives. So there's no hope. There's no backup. It's either they fight now and live, or they die. As Kaminari got kidnapped like he would in canon, except this time Inasa hits the guy with wind from the back, pushing him forward, meaning that Jiro actually could grab onto the guy, and Momo actually hits the dude right in the fucking chest with a sword that she created, killing him. Because these students are going to have to kill if they want to survive. As everyone's working in tandem to take out groups of villains, and the villains realize that these kids aren't weak by any means. This wasn't the intel they were promised. All Might's not here, and Shigaraki's trying to go over there and rush straight towards Deku. And Silver meant what he said by, if Shigaraki tries to hurt Deku, he'll kill him. So, Shigaraki is stabbed right in the back by Silver, Fullbuster. And with Shigaraki dying, like, Kurogiri needs to get him out of there, but Shigaraki dies before he can. And Silver says, we're leaving. As Deku says, you're not leaving, not till I know if it's you. As basically Silver just looks over his shoulder. He says, see you around, kiddo. As basically Silver and Kurogiri disappear and leave Nomu there. As Nomu starts going on a rampage, Shigaraki's dead. It has no orders whatsoever except to fight. So that's all that Nomu can do, is just fight. It's fighting everyone, friends and foes alike. And pretty much Deku and Shoto realize they have to take out this guy together. And so that's actually when they get a flashback, as Deku's just like, wait a minute. This thing, as Shoto, he's like, what? He's like, this is what was fighting. Or, as Shoto says, wait, this exact thing? How? As Deku says, no, it's not exactly the same. It's a lot weaker than the one Or fought. But it's the same type. No speech pattern. Mindlessness. The pure destructive power. As Shoto says, so the same people that destroyed our lives are up to this? Deku says, yeah, we gotta kill this thing. Now, as Shoto said, agreed. As everyone looks at their face, which they are extremely serious, they both rip off their shirts as they just tell everybody, get to the door now. And all of the students actually run, because they've never seen either of them this fucking angry. Yui's never seen Deku this intense in his life. So she's actually very surprised and very scared. As for Momo, she's never even thought that Shoto could get mad, let alone to this degree. As the two square up with Nomu, they're getting ready, and ultimately they just go on a full-fledged assault. So Deku and Shoto are tag teaming Nomu, hitting him with ice moves, breaking him apart as he regenerates slowly. Deku actually uses ice lances, which pierce through Nomu as Shoto burns him to near death. As the Nomu just keeps on regenerating, Shoto's getting ready to go for another assault, as basically Shoto has his flames, Deku has his ice. As they connect their hands, and after the fire hits Nomu, ice comes around, freezing the fire. It actually hits Nomu, trapping him in there with the fire, as the ice is keeping it contained good enough for the fire to really burn. And Nomu's getting severe freezer burn all throughout his body as he starts to decompose and fall apart. He can't regenerate fast enough because it just keeps on attacking him more and more. So with that, Nomu dies. As for Deku and Shoto, they're damn near on the verge of passing out from exhaustion. It's been a while since they've went at anything that hard with that much intent to kill. So they get up there as they look at 13, who's barely alive and could actually almost be considered dead. Aizawa, there's no saving him. And so they get there as they freeze the door, and Tetsu says he'll take it from here. They can rest. As Shoto's shivering, Deku's just exhausted as he passes out. And so Tetsu breaks down the door as they actually start calling the school. School answers as they send out all staff members immediately to go rescue those kids. As they get there, the police arrive as they take everybody else into, custody. And just like that, everybody else is questioned. They give their statements and everything is set. So with that leads to the event of the USJ being closed down. Now, the media is not having this whatsoever, as Endeavor's not having it either. His sons nearly were killed. He cannot lose any more family members. They're all he has left, as he is violently angry. Now, 13 ended up passing away in the hospital room. She couldn't recover enough or fast enough to actually have her life saved. Too much time had passed. So she ended up passing away on the operating table. Aizawa and 13 are given a proper funeral. The school gives them some time off to, kind of see what they're going to do. So during this time, Deku actually doesn't want to see Yui. So he ends up hanging out with Cammy most of the time. And Cammy actually convinces Deku to, let her help relieve some of that stress. And Deku says okay. So he's breaking out the Saiyan armor. As the two of them go to Cammy's house, her parents aren't there, and they end up actually, having a little bit of a good time. Because for one, they're not doing it in a bed or a couch, no. They're doing it in a hot tub. So, he's got this, Deku already got his Saiyan armor on, he's ready to go. Now, this is where the 18 plus scene comes in. For you who don't want to hear it, just skip ahead. I don't care. This is the only warning you're getting. So, 3, 2, 1. Alright, let's get into this shit for you fellow degenerates. So, basically, Cammy's in there as she walks in, butt ass naked. Deku's like feeling up her tits, he's sucking on them a little bit. He gives her a kiss. She's feeling pretty good. Now, they finally get into the hot tub part, and Cammy, she says, "Here, I'm gonna take control." And Deku says, "Okay." She says, "Don't freeze the pool." And Deku just says, "Hey, I ain't gonna freeze this hot tub. It feels good." So, she slides Deku in, and Deku's just like, "Oh, fuck. Damn, this is tight." She's like, "Oh, yeah, definitely." As Cammy starts riding Deku right there, she kisses him. Deku's like gripping her back, kissing on her neck, sucking on a titty, playing with the other one. And, Cammy's really enjoying this shit. She's going faster and faster. And Deku, he's just keeping up pace for pace. Because Deku starts, he puts his hands on her hips. And he starts thrusting into her while she's riding his shit. So, they're both going about the same speed, same strength. Deku starts going a little bit harder, though. Cammy actually, not expecting that, all ready for that shit. She's actually moaning a bit now. Because Cammy, she's starting to moan real fucking loud. Because Deku's just getting harder and harder. And he's just going fucking stronger, faster. Cammy can't keep up. Now Cammy's the one that's getting fucked. Deku pulls out, bends this bitch over, has her knees on the fucking part where you sit down, and he's going all in on this bitch. He's pulling her hair, smacking her ass, put some fucking ice handcuffs on her fucking wrists. So yeah, he's going all in on that shit. As Cammy's just like has her fucking tongue just hanging out, like her eyes are rolling back. Bitch cannot even form a fucking sentence, let alone any fucking phrasings. So yeah, she's just losing her mind as Deku's just going harder and harder. All that frustration and shit, he's just pouring that out of his system. Cammy doesn't stop. She barely gets out the one fucking word. So he stops for a bit, and she basically just wraps around him. So he just holds her up there and starts fucking her again, and she's just scratching the fuck out of his back. And basically, yeah, he keeps on going like that. They switch to several different positions. He has that bitch up in his arms like a fucking pretzel, fucking the hell out of her. They do some type of missionary shit, like fucking back to doggy, all the type of shit you can imagine. He even makes a fucking sex swing to put her in out of his ice. And they just keep on going from there. And eventually, Deku finishes, and he's like, "Oh, Saiyan armor held up." So, the two of them are pretty much good. Deku's just chilling in the water. Cammy, on the other hand, she's pretty much going to the bathroom. Because she's going to take a shower and go to bed. She just tells Deku to, lock the door when he leaves. And he says, "Yeah, sure." So he's just sitting there chilling. Now, that's when Yui actually calls him. He gets out, gets his phone out of his pants pocket, answers it. He says, "What's up?" And she says, "Why you sound so exhausted?" And Deku says, "No real reason." "Why, what's up?" She's like, "We need to talk." And Deku says, "I'm a little bit tired today. How about tomorrow?" She says, "Fine. Tomorrow." And Deku's alright. So he hangs up the phone. Yui already knows what he was doing. She ain't stupid. She's just like, okay, well, I guess he wanted the other bitch more. And, that's when she actually calls someone up. Shoto answers. He's just like, yo, can I call you back? I'm kind of in the middle of something. And she's just like, oh, what, you too? And he's like, hey, I'll call you back, like, 30 minutes, alright? She's like, fine, whatever. And basically, he just throws his phone back as Momo says, who is that? Shoto just keep going even harder and harder. He's like, hey, don't worry about it, alright? And she says, okay. And basically, Shoto's just like, thank you, Gray. You left me some Saiyan armor. You are a brother. As he finishes off Momo, as Momo's laying there next to him, she's passed the fuck out. Because, Shoto made her weak in the knees. So it's not like she can walk. But, yeah. So, Shoto calls Yui back. He says, alright, what's up? She says it's his brother. And he's like, Gray, right? And she says, yeah, it's about Gray. And she says, for one, he's been hanging out with that other chick a lot. And I don't know how I feel about it. And he says, well, how do you want him to feel about you? And she says, well, I want him to only be about me. And basically, he's like, okay, well, then make him all about you. Sports festival's coming up. Show off to him. I guarantee you. You show him how serious you are, I'm pretty sure he'll cut ties with that other bitch. And basically, she says, okay. So, shit goes on. And Deku goes over to Yui. Yui tells him, no, we'll wait for the sports festival. He says, okay, sure. And that's when UA's actually has their press release, where they determine that they're going to go into a dorm system on their college campus, and that the sports festival will still happen as usual. So, the dorms are already been prepared. They get flown in and settle down onto the campus, and everyone moves in. And Deku's actually just looking, and he's like, hey, Yui. Yui says, hey. As she just walks past him. Deku's just like, damn, she's colder than I am. And Shoto says, oh, you think that? Okay. And basically, Shoto goes up to Momo and says, hey, you wanna help me break this new room in? As Momo blushes, she says, don't talk about that out in here. As Shoto just says, oh, come on. As she says, fine. So, Shoto and Momo have another night of Saiyan armor practice. So, yeah. Deku, on the other hand, he feeling kind of mad. He's not even gonna lie. He feel real mad. So, days come and go, and Deku's training and doing his best in school, all that good shit. Sports festival happens, and this is where he actually meets Bakugo again. Now, Bakugo's really pissed off at Deku because Deku cost him the points during the entrance exam that would have led to him getting into Class 1A. Instead, he's with the Class 1B rejects. As Monoma is still trying to tell Bakugo that nobody is as good as Class 1B. As Bakugo says, shut up, you self-complacent bitch. As Monoma just says, ugh. Kendo's not able to control Bakugo whatsoever. Bakugo is the dominant personality of Class 1B. And pretty much, like, they heard about that whole villain attack, and they just say that They think they're all that, huh? And that's when Shinzo actually comes up. Shinzo's actually not here to antagonize Class 1A. No, he actually says that he's actually sorry about that they had to go through that. It must have been terrifying. As Deku and Shinzo see eye to eye on this, and they actually shake hands. But word's gotten around that it was Deku's father, his biological father, who was actually responsible for the villain attack. And Deku says that he's not sure that that is his father. His father died when he was a kid. As everyone looks as they do the research, that's true. There's a death certificate for Silver Fullbuster. So everyone just kind of leaves Deku alone. And nobody really wants to get near him. But the day of the sports festival is here. So we start off with the race. Now, the race would actually be a lot different, since Deku does have ice he can use, and his ice make magic actually allows him to make ice that can move. So he makes an ice make dragon that actually carries him all the way to the finish line as Shoto is skating on his ice, and ultimately they get there around the same time, but Deku's just a little bit faster. So Deku gets first place, Shoto gets second place, Bakugo is dead last out of the three and third. So that settles it as Inasa comes in fourth. Now, how the next battle would actually go on is Deku and Shoto, they're a team. And Inasa, he's teamed up with them. And for their last member, it's actually Uraka, who is Inasa's girlfriend. As the four of them make a pretty solid team. So, the rider has been determined to be actually Inasa. Deku, Shoto, and Uraka are the horses. As Uraka's out in front, Deku and Shoto are at the back. And so, the battle begins. And unlike a whole lot of other instances, like this team is actually very versatile with defense and offense. So Inasa's actually able to blow away people. Deku and Shoto are actually able to use their ice to their advantage. So yeah, it actually works out great because Deku's actually using his shoulders and not his hands, while Shoto is doing the same and Uraka's using her hands instead. So that's how that goes. So Deku still has his hands free to do his ice make stuff, and he actually chooses to stay in one place as everybody else on his team agrees, and they make ice make cannons. So their whole deal is, since they have the most amount of points, they're just going to have defense, and their defense is unbeatable. Inasa has the air covered, Deku and Shoto have the ground covered, and if they need it, Uraka can make them float. So it's overall really good. And with that, this time runs out, and I'm gonna say, like, the canon people that passed still do go on, except Mei is replaced with Inasa since Mei got eliminated. So a lot of the fights go along just like in canon, but when it comes to Deku versus Shinzo, this is a lot different. For one, Deku and Shinzo are staring each other down, and they're ready to just fight. Shinzo tries to play at Deku's mind, but Ojiro had already warned Deku about what Shinzo is capable of. And so that actually leads Deku to being more on guard around Shinzo. With that, Shinzo is ready to go, but Deku, he's not about to give Shinzo the satisfaction. So he just creates an ice make shovel and walks over to Shinzo. And Shinzo's just like, oh, what's going on? What are you doing with that? Deku's not saying a word. As he's walking slowly, as everyone's just like, what's he doing with a shovel? As Deku takes the shovel and smacks Shinzo in the face, knocking him to the ground. And while Shinzo's down there, Deku just beats on him with the fucking shovel. He's just slamming the shovel down on Shinzo more and more, as Shinzo's not even saying anything, as Deku says, "This is why you don't talk about my father, you fucking purple-haired bitch!" As he just keeps slamming it down on Shinzo. As that's when Midnight says, that's it, he's down, he can't take no more. As Deku just starts digging a hole. He's like, alright, fine. As he starts digging a hole there, and people are just like, the fuck is he doing? And that's when other heroes have to come down there and tell Deku to stop digging the hole, put the shovel down, and Deku does that and he walks off. At a bar, Silver's watching that. He's like, damn, boy's got anger issues now. As pretty much he's just saying Deku, and he's just like, I'm sorry, boy. As basically the man comes out, he says, this wasn't the deal we had, Silver. You should know your existence is entirely dependent on my quirk, right? But no matter. You're gonna come in useful for something after all. As he smiles and walks off, Silver hates himself for having his body being used as a tool. He's nothing more than a puppet. And so, the other fights, they go very similar. And now we get to Deku versus Shoto. Now, for Shoto, this fight is about making sure that Deku is good mentally. So he's not going to hold back. Deku's not holding back either. As they stare at each other. And ultimately, they get ready to fight. As Midnight says, fight. So, Deku starts with the Ice Make Lances, shooting right at Shoto. He then uses Ice Make Cannon on top of that. Shoto puts up an ice wall and shoots out fire, melting Deku's ice, which surprises Deku. And so, the fight goes on even more intense. Fire spewing at Deku, ice blocking it, ice shooting and ice colliding. The entire arena is shaking with a shivering cold, while barely being warmed up. As Endeavor's looking at Deku, and Endeavor actually leaves. He can't stand here and do nothing, not while one of his sons is in so much mental turmoil, as he decides that his organization, his agency, is going to find Silver Fullbuster and put him down. And so, he goes out, calls up his agency and says that it's all hands on deck. And he's going to be calling in a specialist. So, he calls somebody and they say, wow, I didn't expect to ever get a call from you. Endeavor tells him he needs his expertise on finding people. The man says, very well, he'll help. And so, the team up is made. And Endeavor, he goes to oversee this operation personally. So, while that's going on, Deku and Shoto are fighting toe to toe. And Shoto actually gets the upper hand on Deku. Because of Deku's mental state being the way it is, Shoto actually wins. And Deku's eliminated. And Deku just looks at him and he shakes his hand. As he goes up in there to the bleachers and he sits next to Ida. Ida saying, "Hey man, don't feel too bad. After all, I got eliminated first round by Inasa. And now it's Inasa versus Yui. So let's see how this goes out." As Tetsu's like, "Man, I lost to that Class 1B goon, Kirishima." As Deku says, "Man, don't worry about it." So they watch the rest of the fights. As Yui and Inasa are fighting, Yui's fighting a lot harder, seeing how Deku's mental state was. Ultimately, Yui comes close, but loses. And Uraraka comforts her because, of course, the two of them did fight tough opponents, and they gave it their all, but ultimately, they did lose. So, that's something they have to deal with themselves. So, ultimately, the two of them have a respect for each other. And Yui goes up there and sees Deku. She asks if she can talk to him alone. Deku says yeah. So, Deku ends up talking to Yui, and she says that she wants Deku to only think of her. Nobody else. Like, she wants to be his one girl. And Deku says, "Look, I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Look, I just got a lot going on, and now's not the time to be doing this shit. Alright? Whatever, I'm gone." As Deku just walks out, he changes, and he leaves. He goes home. As pretty much the award ceremony happens, and Shoto ends up winning the entire sports festival. And Bakugo gets second place. And basically Bakugo's very pissed off about that. And that leads the League of Villains to actually seeing that how Bakugo has to be restrained on his second place pedestal, because Bakugo's a lot more angry in this one. He's a lot more aggressive. So yeah, it makes sense that this would happen. And so basically they set their sights on recruiting Bakugo. Now, as for the other deal, Silver says that he's going out. He's going to go have a talk with his son. And the man just says, "That's fine. Have fun." So, while Deku's on his way home, he's met by Silver. As Silver says, "Hey son." Deku's anger immediately gets him to throw a punch at Silver, and Silver punches Deku back instead. As he says, "Not so fast, kiddo." As Deku just tears up and says, "If you were alive this entire time, then why didn't you come back for me?" As basically Silver just says, "What? You think I'm actually your dad?" As Deku just looks at him and says, "What did you say?" As he says, "Did you really think I was your dad?" "No, not at all." As Deku says, "Then who are you?" He says, "That should be obvious. I'm that villain your master killed. That shell is broken. I was reborn, although I needed a new body. Luckily, there was this one lying around, still in good shape. so I decided to take it. As Deku just looks at him with a blaring anger in his eyes. As Deku knows that can't possibly make sense, but there's no other explanation. He knows his father's dead. And so, basically, Deku says, "Ice make hammer!" As pretty much the man that is using the body of Silver Fullbuster eats the ice. As he says, that was some good ice. As Deku just looks at him and says, "What? How is that possible?" As he says, "Well, you see, I'm an ice demon slayer." As he showcases the mark, as he says, "What the hell?" As he says, Slayer type magic eats all other elemental attacks of that same element. So with ice, I eat any ice attack that comes at me. As Deku is about ready to fight, but at that moment, Silver's body is pulled back, and Deku is left there alone. As he stares up and says, "Why?" As he cries there. As basically there was a girl watching the entire time. And that girl was Yui. As Yui goes over there and comforts Deku, as he hugs her and cries into her, as she holds him and looks as the snow is falling from the sky. After all, whenever Silver or Deku use their powers, it somehow always makes snow fall from the sky. As she's just watching it, and she actually takes Deku back to his house and sits there with him, while Deku is angry, and Yui apologizes as Deku says it's okay. He's sorry he's never really took her feelings into consideration. She says, "Yeah, it hurts, but now's not the time for that, like you told me." As Deku says, "You're right, it's not." And so the day comes for the internships. Now, with Deku's internship, since Endeavor's on a case, he's not accepting any interns. Which means there's going to be a lot different things that would happen. Now, Yui is actually scouted by All Might. And she says, okay. So she takes up All Might's. Deku is actually scouted by Ectoplasm, as Ectoplasm actually starts to teach Deku. As for Shoto, he's scouted by somebody calling themselves Fat Gum. And, well, he accepts. So, that's how that goes out. Now, during Deku's internship time, and Ida already knows that his brother's been injured by Stain, and he still goes to the Hosu thing. However, All Might is visiting Gran Torino. So, yeah, you see where we're going with that. Now, for this, Deku is actually learning a lot from Ectoplasm, like control, more variety in using his quirk, things like that. And that actually leads Deku to unlocking a lot more, how you would say, versatility with his attacks. Because until then, he was just always focusing on long range first and then going to close range. He's never thought about starting from close range and going long range. Or vice versa, mixing mid-ranged attacks as well. And Deku agrees that that could work out for him a lot better. And so Deku actually works on an attack called Ice Make Geyser. And that leads him to fixing his problem, where if his enemy got behind him, he could use Geyser at a range that would go behind him and actually attack his enemies at a longer range while focusing on one that's directly in front of him. So with this, he's actually become very proficient in taking on groups of enemies instead of being stuck on 1v1. So Ectoplasm is very, commending of Deku, as he tells him he did a great job. Now back to where All Might is with Yui. She's actually becoming All Might's successor. At the sports festival, she showed something that All Might had been looking for: determination not to give up. And so, Yui ends up becoming All Might's successor. And with that, she's actually being trained by Gran Torino and All Might at one time, causing her to actually develop full cowling immediately. But she could only use about 5% off the bat. But with that, they actually go out to Hosu to do some recon. Now, this is when things take a turn for the worse. You see, Stain is actually recruited by Silver, or what's using Silver's body. As for that, Stain actually accepts because Silver is a much better negotiator than Shigaraki is. Because, for one, Silver's a lot more mature and knows how to manipulate people. And so, Stain joins up, but he's basically still allowed to do what he was going to be doing. However, they still do release the Nomu because they want to make a statement. And Stain agrees that the statement will be made and the Nomus would help him kill more heroes effectively. So, while Stain is taking care of a hero in an alley, Ida does find him. The difference is that when Stain takes Ida down, a Nomu is right there to immediately injure Ida further, because the Nomu are playing with Ida. Now, when Yui sees this, she immediately jumps in and smashes the Nomu clean off of Ida with her foot. Okay? She's using kicking attacks. As she just says, "Off my classmate, you ugly bird-looking son of a bitch." As Ida thanks her, as that's when they see Stain. And Stain sees All Might. And All Might is looking at Stain, and basically Stain says, "Let me be your sidekick. All Might, we can get everything back on track. We can make this world better. You're the only true hero." As All Might just says, "You've got to be out of your damn mind. You're nothing I would ever consider making a sidekick, you demented son of a bitch." As All Might blitzes at Stain, and Stain's not even fighting back. So when All Might hits Stain, Stain coughs up blood, and he's done. As Stain's out for the count. And Stain is arrested, like normal. However, Stain's message does get out. As for such, people are still recruited to the League of Villains, so that still happens. Only issue is when Dabi tries to, interfere and test Silver, Dabi finds out why you don't fuck around and find out. Because Silver flash freezes Dabi for a good minute, and no amount of flames can thaw Dabi out. So, Silver has to undo his ice, and Dabi is like, "I was nearly killed." And basically, Silver says, "Well, you learned a valuable lesson, youngin'. You learned why you don't fuck with me. So, how about it? You gonna work with me like a good bitch? Or do I need to put you in your place further?" And that's when the voice tells him, Now, be nice to our new recruits. After all, they're not used to how we run things. But don't worry, they will be." As Silver says, "Yeah, alright." As that's going on, basically, Ida's stuck in the hospital. Although he will make a full recovery, Deku calls Yui and asks if she's okay. She said yeah. Deku said alright. He hangs up the phone. Time passes and they're back at school. Now, Ida is heavily ridiculed and it's been told that he will have to, stay at the dorm, clean up, and do basically the stuff that Deku and Bakugo did while they were out fighting that time. So yeah, Ida's stuck doing that. But Ida knows that justice has been fulfilled, and he knows now why rules are there to be made, and you have to follow them and not make trouble for anyone else. So Ida's even harder on the rules now. So now when the final exam comes up, Deku is tested separately from everybody else, as he's the one that they want to find out if he's okay. So that means a third member is put onto one team. So basically, put the third member with whoever you want. It doesn't matter, because I'm only covering Deku and Shoto's. So yeah. So with this, Deku, he's tested against somebody that's very familiar to him. It's Endeavor. Endeavor took time off to come and be Deku's opponent, as he wants to make sure his son's okay. As the fight begins, Deku's not running, Endeavor's not moving. As they fight each other, and Deku starts to remember the first time they ever fought, as Endeavor remembers it as well. He commends Deku for getting a lot better, and that his tactics have increased and are a lot more trickier to figure out this time. He's grown as a fighter and as a hero, but most importantly, he's grown as a person overall, as he couldn't be any more proud of Deku than he is right now. But he's letting the past control him. He needs to let it go, move on, accept that there is some unholy reason why his dad is back, but it's not his actual dad, and that if his actual father was ever capable of something like this. Deku says, "No, stop trying to get in my head," as he's fighting a lot harder, but he's making a lot of sloppy mistakes now. Endeavor is very cold-hearted in this moment, where he just beats on Deku and tells him to answer the question, as Deku just says, "No, he wasn't," and Endeavor grabs Deku by the collar and says, "Then why do you think it's him? Why do you think this is something he would willingly do? If he's still alive, or if he was brought back, if there's some unholy fucker in his body, why do you think that it is actually him?" As Deku just says, "I don't know. It just feels like it's him." And Endeavor says, "Then why is he doing this? Would he ever willingly do this? You already said no." And Deku finally pieces it together. He's being controlled. Endeavor says yes. And we'll find him. And we'll put him out of his misery. For good. You have my word on that. As Deku starts tearing up as him and Endeavor continue their fight after their bond. And basically, Deku ends up winning. Because remember, Endeavor does have to hold back. Because it is a test. So, with that, that's out of the way. Shoto is actually teamed up with Yui. Their opponent is All Might. And All Might's not as sentimental as Endeavor. Shoto realizes that his teacher, who taught him the first time, has a new student that he's teaching now. And so, the two of them actually end up fighting. As it's one-on-one, where All Might is being pushed back by Shoto a little bit, but it's just because of his injury. Now, Yui, on the other hand, is looking for a way out, and she finds it and radios that in to Shoto. And Shoto creates a huge ice wall and skates off, knowing there's no way in hell he can beat All Might. And so, with that, the two actually manage to escape, because while All Might is coming at them, Shoto's just shooting ice all the time, and he mixes in some fire as well, so All Might can't get too close. So, the two of them end up passing through escape. Now, all the other people do theirs. Inasa passes. Everybody else that failed in canon, they still fail. And so, with that, it leads to the training camp. Now, where the training camp part is that they do have to be a lot carefuler with this training camp deal. Now that they know that Shigaraki, who in canon they consider a man-child, isn't in charge. Now they actually have a very vivid and threatening force of Silver Fullbuster, who is the main antagonistic force in this. So, with this, Deku and them, like their whole training camp deal, it pretty much goes rather smoothly. Deku is still punched in the dick by Kota, as, you know, that sparks off a kind of rivalistic thing between them. And ultimately, since Minetta's not there, Kota doesn't fall off of there, and Deku doesn't find out about his parents' past or anything. So, time passes, they work on their quirks, Deku's practicing his ice magic, and all that. Class 1B arrives, and pretty much everything's going the same as in canon. Now, where we actually get to the different part is this. So, whenever the villains start attacking, Deku's not looking for Kota. Not one bit. Instead, there's someone else that's taken a liking to Kota even more. That's Bakugo. Because Bakugo heard about how Kota punched Deku in the dick. And he likes the kid. So, the person who fights Muscular is actually Bakugo. And Bakugo's actually letting off a lot of explosions. That lets the teachers know where they have to go. And the person who actually took over for Aizawa is Midnight. So Midnight's there, and she's going over there to fight Muscular with Bakugo. After all, Aizawa is dead, so you gotta have somebody to take the shoes. So, while that's going on, like, the fight with Muscular is a 2v1 at this point, as they eventually are able to subdue Muscular, and the forest is on fire, and Deku's running through there trying to get everybody out. And that's when he comes face to face with the person known as Dabi, as he says, "So, you're the new Todoroki. Well, ciao," as he sets fire right near Deku. But that's when ice comes in between Deku and Dabi, blocking it, as it's Shoto who's looking at him, as he has that glare in his eyes, as that leads Deku to actually wake back up to reality, as him and Shoto are actually fighting Dabi. And it's the real Dabi, not the fake one that Twice made. Now, the person who Toga ends up fighting is Ochako and Yui, which they're actually able to defeat Toga together. So Toga is taken off the board. As for Spinner, yeah, that's still happening as normal. So pretty much towards the end of things, like Bako, he still does get captured. Because even though he was fighting Muscular with Kota, Bako did take a lot of damage. And, well, Twice does have a huge help in this. He's actually made clones of Mr. Compress, which actually go over there, sneak up on Bakugo, and grab him. And it's thanks to that that they're able to run back. Now, Moonfish is taken out, Mustard is taken out, all of the people that get captured, plus Toga and Dabi. Dabi is actually defeated by Deku and Shoto, although it's a very close fight. And Shoto actually gets his signature scar in that fight. So Shoto's actually very injured. Deku, on the other hand, is very angry and is about to kill Dabi before the teachers tell him, no, don't do it. But Deku doesn't listen, as he drives his Ice Make Excalibur right into Dabi's chest, killing him, as everyone just saw him murder a villain. And they realize the gravity of the situation now. Everyone there makes an agreement not to testify against Deku or any of them, and just say it was an absolutely necessary thing. And so, with that done, Dabi's death is written off as self-defense, even though they know that Deku just murdered him. So, with that, it actually leads to Momo saying that she did get a tracker on them, and that information is given to the police, where Endeavor and All Might, and as well as Endeavor's secret partner, who has turned out to be Sir Night-Eye, is actually getting ready to commence the raid. And there's actually one other hero that's actually getting ready to commence the raids with them. That being Mirko, as Mirko was actually contacted by Endeavor specifically for this, just to have extra protection and help. You see, Endeavor's actually started reaching out to other heroes for help more and more lately, which is honestly getting him more and more noticed and liked by the public, which is putting his public popularity on par with All Might's. Now, while Deku is on his way home, this is where he actually meets somebody else. He comes face to face with Silver, as he looks at him and says, "This is it. No more. We end this tonight." As Silver says, "Yeah, that we do." And so, Deku and Silver get ready for a fight, along with the heroes over there getting ready to fight the League of Villains, who they think is controlling Silver right there, right now. But they're wrong. However, when the villains attack, no one is sent away. All for One doesn't care about them enough. And ultimately, he's getting ready to make his final stand right here, right now. With that, the fight begins. Deku is fighting against Silver, as the two have a brutal battle, and Deku is fighting for his life. All Might and Endeavor are fighting All for One, who has a necromancy quirk, meaning he's controlling the dead bodies of Shigaraki, Dabi, everyone that's fought and died by the hero's hands. and they're actually fighting against reanimated corpses. So they realize they have to kill this guy, which means that Mirko comes in very handy with dealing with Shigaraki, while Endeavor is dealing with Dabi. All Might is fighting against All for One head on, while Deku is fighting Silver head on. And that ends up leading to a huge revelation that Silver is actually being controlled by All for One, as Deku is getting so angry at this that he's crying, but he's not getting sloppy this time, because for one, Silver has come clean with him, and Deku actually takes a bit of debris and throws it so hard it pierces through Silver's stomach, and Silver lets it happen, as he can no longer fight Deku. And so Silver infuses his demon Ice Slayer magic onto Deku's arm, giving him the mark. And with that, he fades away, right when All Might kills All for One. Along with all the other bodies fading away, the threat has been ended. And with that, they get ready to head on back. So, with that done and out of the way, everyone comes back. Bakugo is rescued, and UA is put under heavy scrutiny again. However, things are moving a bit more okay-ish for them, since they did rescue them and no other students were caught doing that. Nobody saw Deku's fight with Silver, so it's alright. Now, when Deku comes to school the next day after everything that happened, people notice that marking on his arm, as he says, don't worry about it. He's made a request to change his hero outfit to having more of an open, long, white coat and some black pants and boots. And that is honestly accepted. So, it's time for the provisional licensing exam. Now this is where Deku's little harem thing actually comes to a head. To where, for one, he has to deal with Cammy and Yui. And the two girls are fighting it out. And it's actually the real Cammy. It's not Toga. But, yeah. And so, for one, the whole thing between Yui and Cammy, Yui beats Cammy's ass, and Cammy beats Yui's ass on a mental scape, kind of making illusions of how Deku had sex with her. So yeah, Yui's not that happy. However, Deku, he does admit that he does like Yui a bit more now, and so the two girls actually agree, like, whichever one can fuck him better can have him. So, after this, Deku has a special night ahead of him. However, everyone passes from Class 1A because, Deku's really just kind of a lot more serious in this, but he's definitely more determined, and he helps out a lot more people. Cammy actually moves on as well, as she is a Shiketsu student, but Inasa, he did think about going to Shiketsu, but he's glad he didn't, because those uniforms are terrible. So with that, everyone moves on, everybody passes, everyone gets their provisional licensing exams, all that. Now, time for that night. This is another 18 plus scene. Don't want to watch it, skip ahead. So, the thing is that Deku, he's at Cammy's house because, Cammy's parents are on a vacation. So, yeah, they got the whole place themselves. Now, Deku's equipped with that Saiyan armor. And so they both take turns giving Deku head. And, they're just kind of just waiting, getting him hard enough to put the armor on. Which, Yui, she puts it in her mouth and then slides it on while she's giving him head. So, yeah, she got game like that. Deku's impressed, and he's just like, damn, alright. So, next to Deku, he wants to feel what Yui's like. So, he puts himself in there. He's like, fuck, this is the tightest shit ever. Kami's like, excuse me? And Deku says, did I stutter? So, he actually starts going at it with Yui. It's doggy style at first. And Yui, she's having to get used to it because this is her first time. So, yeah. I mean, it's her first time actually doing it. Not her first time giving head. Yeah. Anyway, Yui, she's feeling pretty good. And she gets pretty into it. Gosh damn it. So, yeah, he's pretty much just giving it to Yui. And she's enjoying it. Like, this is the best shit that she's felt in her life. So, basically, he starts switching back to Kami. He plowing that shit. He's like, damn, it was nice to be in this shit again. And so, basically, the two of them have their field day with Deku. As Deku is pretty much damn near exhausted. And his Saiyan armor about to give out. So, he finishes up as they're all satisfied. Deku's laying there on the fucking couch. Two girls are on his arms. And, they say, so, which one of us is better? And Deku says, shit, I can't fucking choose. And it's like, oh, really? And Deku says, yeah, really? And they say, okay. Well, I guess it's just going to be both of us then. And they're like, wait, what? And they say, yeah, we pretty much decided that, we can both share you. And Deku's just like, okay, alright, fine, I'm good with that. And so, pretty much, that whole situation is done and over with. So, Deku has no real problems anymore. Now, Endeavor, he's actually, sliding into his role of being the #1 hero a lot better. Because All Might is officially retired. He's killed off for one. There's no more of a threat to the successors of, One for All. So that means Yui doesn't have to worry about passing it down. And so, that whole thing happens. Now, how this next arc is going to go is a lot different. You see, instead of Overhaul meeting with Shigaraki, he meets with Redestro. And has his Meta Liberation Army actually supplying that shit. Because Redestro figures, if the heroes don't have their quirks, they can't stop his army from taking over. So, he actually shakes his hands with Overhaul. And they actually start moving on front bases. Now, Endeavor is having to help Night Eye with his investigation, since Night Eye helped Endeavor with his. That's how that actually ends up going. Now, Deku's work study, he actually doesn't go to Ectoplasm because he's actually going to Endeavor. Shoto goes to Fat Gum. And basically, Yui actually ends up going to Night Eye. As Deku is pretty much just ready to go. Inasa is actually allowed to go to Night Eye as well. So, Inasa is a part of this. Shoto's a part of it. Deku's a part of it. Uraka, Asui, Tetsu instead of Kirishima. And yeah, that's basically the whole team up. So, this is how it's going to go down. So, how this ends up going down is that, for one, Endeavor is actually telling Deku that they're going to be working closely with the Night Eye Agency. And it's that same day where basically Mirio tells Yui to let Eri go back. And so they do. And that actually ends up haunting them. Because what Deku's end up doing is he's working on the Meta Liberation angle with Endeavor and his agency. So they're not a part of this whole Yakuza type thing. So basically, Deku can't tell any of them about his involvement with, hunting down the Meta Liberation Army, and they can't tell Deku about the Yakuza stuff. So it causes a lot of tension, but Deku and Yui are pretty much, they're hanging in there. Because every night they have their bedtime sparring, and they're pretty much just chilling with each other. Shoto's doing the same with Momo, and that's how they keep each other grounded. Now, Shoto and Deku tell each other everything, regardless of being allowed to or not. They don't care whatsoever. So with that, it actually ends up in a lot more of cooperation happening. They have a meeting, and Endeavor's actually allowed to the meeting with Deku. And everybody's pretty much just wondering, okay, what's going to happen? As Deku says that he can go undercover and infiltrate the Meta Liberation Army. And Endeavor agrees that would be the best course of action, since Deku showcases off his new power of the Devil Ice Slayer magic that he has. And since it can't be destroyed by the quirk erasing bullet since it's magic. Which they all agree that would be the best course of action. So Deku ends up going undercover. And all that news about Eri being uncovered, well, that sits on Deku's mind heavily. It completely makes Yui break down and cry. Mirio, he actually starts crying a little bit too. So, yeah, it's not a happy thing whatsoever. And so, that actually ends up with Deku having to perform a test of strength, which he immediately just blazes through. And that gets him up to Redestro. Redestro accepts him as one of their own. And he tells them that whenever the heroes launch their assault on the Yakuza, that they're actually going to launch an assault on the heroes at the same place. And with that, the heroes will be wiped out, and that'll lead to a revolution that could happen immediately after. And so, Deku relays that information. And so, a second team is set up. So, the day of the raid happens, and Deku's not there because he's still under deep cover. And with that, the raid begins. And when the raid begins, Deku starts moving out, and he lets the other heroes know. So, the raid against the Yakuza actually goes a lot differently. Because for one, there's no Aizawa to erase a quirk. But there is hope, because now they have a lot more powerhouses. So the members are actually dismantled pretty easily. And Gran Torino is actually part of this raid as well. So it does actually help a lot more. With his quickness, he's able to knock out the guy in the wall after, Tetsu breaks down the wall. Because the person who actually fights Rampa with Fat Gum is Shoto. That means Tetsu is still there to bulldoze his way through. Now, they actually do find him. Gran Torino knocks him out, so the wall thing is handled. With Tamaki fighting those guys, same as in canon, Mirio is actually rushing through there as Yui is using her full cowling to break through walls as well. She's actually a lot stronger now. But so is Shoto, because they don't take as much damage as Fat Gum and Kirishima did, because Shoto's not playing around. And so he's actually just freezes Rampa right there, killing him because he froze him at sub-zero temperatures. So with that, you know, Rampa's not really going to be living anymore. Now, the rest of the fights are pretty easy for the team to handle. Inasa and Mirio are the ones tag teaming fucking Overhaul, but that's when Redestro shows up. Now this is where Endeavor's agency shows up along with all the other top pro heroes, and it's an all-out battle as ultimately Deku betrays them right there, freezing over 90% of Redestro's forces as he has his Demon Slayer mark active, and he actually freezes Redestro, killing him. As basically Overhaul sees all these heroes there and he realizes it's over, as Endeavor uses his Prominence Flame Burst and accidentally kills Overhaul. So yeah, Eri is rescued and everything's good. All threats have been eliminated. As for Deku, he actually ends up staying in Japan for a while. He does go over to properly bury his father in Alaska, but then he comes back. He graduates, and he doesn't actually continue down the path of being a pro hero. Instead, he actually becomes part of the hero agency, which dictates what heroes do and don't do, as he's actually making things easier for Shoto, as Shoto ends up being the #1 pro hero. And with that, I hope you guys enjoy. As always, I have been your Emperor the Crowned Fiend, and peace.